We are in Guilty Gear players. Hey, what up, Move? Good to see you. Guilty Gear players are in an interesting situation now where we actually have multiple Guilty Gears that one could reasonably play. Well, reasonable depends, right? So I'll just go ahead and open up training mode and lab a little bit with I talk. Basically, where we're at is if you want to play Guilty Gear, you can now play Plus R, or you can play Rev2 and have a reasonable shot at a quality game in either one. Now with Plus R, obviously, because it has rollback, it is easier to get a quality match. There are going to be more people playing it. Like, the reason I have a good time playing Exerd online is largely because I gotta change the song real quick. I can't be hanging out in training mode listening to Holy Orders. It's too intense. The reason why I can get a quality match in Plus R or in Rev 2 is not because the netcode is good. Quite the contrary, it's not. Sorry, it's because I've done the work of connecting with my local community and building up my local community in order to get a lot of people nearby who can play the game, right? Let's see, what do we want to listen to? We'll listen to... We'll listen to Sucker Sage. So the reason I can get good matches in Rev 2 is because I've basically plugged into the local community, right? Which is why when we run Wednesday night fights, we do it for NorCal only. Not just because I want to do nice things for NorCal. NorCal deserves nice things. It's also because the match quality gets significantly worse when we open it up to people outside because the netcode is ass, right? And before Plus R got rollback, shit was even worse, right? Like Plus R's netcode is on a whole new level of whack. I remember trying to play Bond during that shit, and it was not great. Okay, so now thanks to the Plus R GGPO project, we have a Guilty Gear that you can play really well. Like they were running Japan versus US matches over the weekend. And that shit, like, I'm sure it wasn't perfect. It was pretty damn good. We could not run Japan versus US in Exerd by any stretch of the imagination. And even like running it in like other rollback games, like Street Fighter 5 is rollback, but it's not good enough to support that level of play. So it's really kind of amazing. And it's, as someone who loves Guilty Gear, but especially loves Rev 2, this whole thing has been kind of bittersweet because on one hand, I'm really excited to have the shot, to have the ability to just play really high quality like netcode matches, especially because we don't have locals, right? We're stuck in fucking COVID hell for probably at least another year. I'm not going to get locals back anytime soon, so the fact that I can just play like pretty high quality matches against people all over the place is fucking amazing. But it's Plus R. And like I have no problem going to learn how to play Plus R, but I wanted to play Rev 2, right? I still do want to play Rev 2. And so it's kind of bittersweet to see, like, even though I am nothing but happy for the people who've been holding it down for Plus R for the longest time, like Hano. Hano is fucking shit up in these online tournaments, and he's fucking shit up because he put in the work and he loves this game, right? He held it down for Plus R when like almost no one was holding it down for Plus R, right? And I'm so happy that the Plus R fans get it, and that the new Guilty Gear fans get to check out, a classic, right? Because Plus R does a lot of really awesome things. Hey, what up, CT? It's okay. I'll get at you next time. But I'm also sad because I wish Exerd could have this too, right? If Exerd and Plus R both had rollback, I'd probably still play around with Plus R, but I would also want to play a lot of Exerd. And I figure, like, okay, look, I've been playing fighting games for a long time. I know what it's like to have to let go or to play different games than the one I really, really want to play right now. But if I'm feeling this, probably a lot of other folks, especially people who have gotten into Exerd relatively recently, are feeling this even sharper than I would, right? And it's funny. So I said in the tweet today when I was announcing the stream for today that I was going to talk about fighting games and Guilty Gear. I was going to talk about martial arts, and I think if you are feeling this way, or if you have complicated feelings about plus R and rollback, maybe this will help you, because this tends to be how I think of it. So I'm going to start actually by talking about my background in martial arts. Right. So I started out playing fighting games when Street Fighter 2 came out, and everyone was playing fighting games. It didn't really matter, right? I like to regale the kids these days with stories of when like there's a Street Fighter 2 cabinet on every corner and blah 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 blah. And that's kind of what it was. That's not every corner, but you know they were all over the place. But I didn't really go in on fighting games until CVS 2. CVS 1 and CVS 2 were the games that got me like playing fighting games and like trying to get good, trying to find people to play with. And so I did. I love CVS 2. I still love CVS 2. I still play CVS 2. But the thing was, back in these days, back in the arcade days, you go to an arcade, you weren't sure who was going to be there, and you weren't sure what people were going to be playing there. So most of us, when we were learning how to play fighting games, right, in the arcades, you might have the game that you like, right? Like CVS 2 was for me. Other people play Third Strike, other people play Marvel 2, whatever. But you kind of learn how to play everything, because all these games were cool as hell. And even if no one was there playing the game that you wanted to play, you still like spent the money to go to the arcade and shit, right? So you still and the time. So you figure I'd rather be there playing someone else than just like paying the lab shit. So whatever, I might as well play some Marvel 2. I might as well play some some ST, some KOF, whatever the fuck. And so we kind of learned how to play everything. Slippy and rollback, yeah, I get you. So like when I first started playing fighting games, just because of the nature of the environment I was in, I was playing a little bit of everything, right? Yeah, I wasn't good at Marvel 2, but like I learned how to do some basic shit. At first it was just like messing around with like Cable Storm and Cyclops, because that's what people told me to play, and then I learned to do Scrub and blah 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 blah, right? And over the years you kind of put something together, right? I'm not a great Marvel 2 player, but I'd say I'm like basically literate, right? And that's enough to have fun with the game. And I got into martial arts about a year or two after I got into fighting games. And what happened was, I'd always told myself that I wanted to learn like how to do actual fighting games, right? IRL fighting games. And when I was when I went to college, there was a PE class that taught Shotokan karate. And I was like, well, it's what Ryu and Ken do. I might as well do it too. So I gave it a shot, and I did it for my first semester, and I got really into it. I was training like 4 days a week. Second semester, I continued, but I also see another class listed that says it's just called Jiu-Jitsu. Now I'm like, Jiu-Jitsu, that's a different fighting game. I want to give that a shot, right? I was into the karate. I was having a fun time doing Shotokan, but like, it wasn't hitting all the notes for me. I wanted to be doing more sparring, because as a fighting game player, that's the shit that I was the most interested in, right? And we didn't do a whole lot of sparring in that class. It was mostly just meant for a workout and whatever. So I signed up for Jiu-Jitsu in addition to karate. I'm doing Jiu-Jitsu, and day one, I'm basically hooked. I'm like, oh shit, because one, you got to spar on your first day. That's one of the cool things about Jiu-Jitsu, is that since it's grappling, and you can kind of you can be pretty careful about how people spar. You don't have to go at full resistance all the time. It's pretty safe. I got into it, and I was just immediately hooked, and it was really cool. And a lot of the problems that I had with karate, well, actually, the reason I switched over, or the reason I started taking jiu-jitsu, was because one of the karate black belts was like, yeah, I just went to this jiu-jitsu class and I got my ass kicked, and I was like, oh, so I should pick a top tier, and I should learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I loved it. But the thing is, is that the teacher who taught jiu-jitsu at the college was actually, he was I'd say relatively early mixed martial artist. And so in addition to jiu-jitsu, he also taught an MMA class, he taught a boxing class, and so I was like, oh cool, I get to learn all these fighting games from the same person. That's awesome. And so I did all of those things, right? So for the last, I started training when I was about like 18 or 19. So for the last 16 years or so, I've been an actively practicing martial artist in a bunch of different stuff. Jiu-jitsu has kind of been my bread and butter. It's where I put the most work in. I got my purple belt in 2011. That was the last time I ranked up. But I've been training, well, up until COVID, I'd still been managing to train like once or twice a week for jiu-jitsu. And so like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and specifically, they're kind of two different forms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? You have Jiu-Jitsu with the gi, where you're wearing the big jacket and the pajama pants, and you're allowed to like pull on it to throw people around and choke people and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a version called no gi, where you're just wearing a rash guard and board shorts, and you can't hold on to clothes, and it's like slippery and it's faster. And they're both a lot of fun. I prefer the gi because it's a little bit more cerebral. You get there are more things that you can do, basically, because there's all kinds of different ways to hold the gi in different ways and manipulate it, which is awesome. And you can also use the gi to kind of slow things down and think a little bit, which I really like. But I did it all, right? I did some jiu-jitsu with the gi, some no gi. I did boxing, I did kickboxing, I did some judo, I did some wrestling. Like, I tried all these different things to varying levels. And gi jiu-jitsu kind of was my focus, right? That was where I kind of mentally put the most effort, right? And so for years, I trained in a bunch of different environments. I trained in those college classes. I trained at gyms in SoCal. I trained at gyms in NorCal, like a whole bunch of different gyms too. I was kind of all over the place. I went to Japan and trained in a couple different places. I was in Tokyo. I was in Nagoya. I got to train with like former Pride fighters and shit like that. Like, shit was pretty awesome. And then eventually I came back to Oakland. And I trained at a jiu-jitsu gym in Oakland that was known for its competition team. And they were having they had a really good competitive squad. And that's what I wanted. Because I thought about myself as a jiu-jitsu player, and in order to progress, like the same way I would in the fighting game, I was going to be active about tournaments and competing and all that shit, right? And I did that for a couple of years. I actually, the original career plan was not for me to work in an office job at all. I wanted to be a professional fighter, mostly actually as a means towards opening my own school. I wanted to be a professional fighter and just get a couple pro fights to kind of legitimize my claim to running a school and establishing that I knew what I was talking about. And so I was training in the gi, and I was competing, and I did a bunch of tournaments. Eventually, I ranked up to purple belt. It took a little while, but I was entered like U.S. Open, Worlds, like the Pan Ams, all these really awesome tournaments. And I did that for many years, and then I moved. Actually, I moved for work. I had been training a little bit less after I got my purple belt because I wanted to kind of reset a little bit and take a break. And also, that was around the time that I realized that I was going to work in an office and not be a pro fighter. And that was a relief because pro fighters generally have really unhappy and unsafe lives. Like, they don't make that much money, especially if you're mostly in it for the teaching. You're not going to make that much money. You're always worried about your body. Like, it's not fun. I figured I would enjoy martial arts much more as a hobby than I would as a job. And I think, looking back, it's probably one of the smartest things I've ever done. So I moved for work. I moved to LA, and I signed up for a new jiu-jitsu gym there, but I wasn't really feeling it. The team wasn't as competitive, and I also wasn't as competitive. I had different priorities. So I kept on training, but I kind of was doing it out of obligation for a little bit, and moved again eventually to move up to the Bay Area, but in a different part of the Bay Area. Went to a different gym, and there I just kind of really wasn't feeling it. Like, at first it was okay, but over time I just kind of realized that it's not what I was there for, right? I was kind of I was kind of doing it out of a sense of obligation, right? Because I wanted to finish. I wanted, or, you know, and you don't really ever finish, but I wanted to get my black belt. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to stop making progress. Is really what it was. And the thing about jiu-jitsu was with the belt system and the tournaments and all that stuff, it made it really easy for me to feel like I was plugged into something with a focused goal, right? I had a community that I could share things with, and obvious like progression indicators, right? I tried to beat people who were better than me. I would try and you know, add stuff to my game, blah 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 blah. So that all the stuff was there to kind of keep me on the path to improving in jiu-jitsu. But the problem was that the game itself actually kind of wasn't doing it for me anymore. And the thing about jiu-jitsu is, it is a very practical martial art. But after, I'd say at purple belt and above, you're really mostly learning how to kick people's ass who are good at jiu-jitsu, right? It's like, in terms of overall martial arts stuff, right? There's like functional. The distinction that people usually describe as practical, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very practical, but the deeper you get into it, the more it's about like really specialized techniques that are often meant to kick specifically other Jiu-Jitsu players' butts, and often rely on the rules of competitive Jiu-Jitsu or specifics about how you can use the gi or positions where that only really makes sense if you're not allowed to punch or kick, you know, that kind of stuff. And that never was who I was. Even though I thought of myself as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, I always thought of myself as a martial artist first and foremost. And I wanted to be ready. I wanted to be learning a versatile skill set, right? And so a couple of years ago, I kind of hit this turning point where I quit my Jiu-Jitsu gym and signed up at a Muay Thai gym because I knew that as a martial artist, my stand-up was not as good as my grappling was. And I figured that I'm only getting older, right? If I was going to learn how to do this shit, I might as well learn it while I still got some juice left in this body, right? So I signed up for a kickboxing gym. They also have jiu-jitsu. It's not as good, but it was nice because I get to maintain my jiu-jitsu as much as I can, though it's not open right now for COVID, but you know. But that was kind of a turning point for me because I let go of thinking of myself as a jiu-jitsu player and realized, like, I'm a martial artist. I can do jiu-jitsu. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I can learn whatever the fuck I want, so I should learn whatever the fuck I want. Hey, Food, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Hey, good shit this weekend, by the way. That was some awesome stuff. Fuck the Tempted, though. He's cheap as hell. So, that was kind of a turning point for me because I realized that I needed to be in charge of my own development, right? I couldn't just listen to a coach or a teacher and do what they told me to do because this was about figuring out what martial artist I wanted to be, right? Not like, did someone think I was worthy of a black belt? It was about what skills and what approach do I want to take to my martial arts? Who do I want to listen to, right? How do I guide my own journey? And that doesn't mean I've stopped training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I got mats out on my fucking my patio right now. Like, I train with Irene sometimes. It's a lot of fun. But it does mean that I don't think of myself as just a jiu-jitsu guy, because I think I have emphasized like thinking of myself as a martial artist. So why am I talking about martial arts when I could be talking about Guilty Gear? Well, surprise, I'm kind of talking about the same stuff, right? The metaphor here in martial arts is easy because with jiu-jitsu, with wrestling, with judo, with Muay Thai, with boxing, with all these things, they're all being done by the same person in the same body, right? The only thing that's different is the context in which you're doing it, right? Muay Thai is great, but it's not going to be as useful when you're doing some shit like judo or jiu-jitsu when you're not allowed to hit the other person. So, you know, because of that, it's easy to see that it is the same person doing multiple things, right? But some people start jiu-jitsu, or they start boxing, they start Muay Thai, whatever, and they just think, oh, this is the thing that I'm doing. This is the martial art. I'm not going to do anything else because I found the thing I like, and I want the satisfaction of doing the thing I like. And I get it. For a lot of people, especially hobbyists of martial arts, people who are more interested in just finding like a fun way to spend their time, like that's a pretty good way to do it. But for me, that isn't enough, right? It's why, I guess, because I kind of want to do everything, right? I want to think about myself as a complete martial artist. It's the same thing with fighting games, right? Fighting games, we got Plus R, we got Xrd, we got Smash, we got Mortal Kombat, we got Street Fighter, we got all these different games, right? But it's all being played by the same people. No matter which game you're learning, you're the same person playing each game. The beautiful thing about fighting games, more so than other genres, is that they change you like irrevocably, right? And it's so amazing because you're using the same parts of your brain in each game, but you're using them in different ways. You're getting good at different things. I just started playing Plus R. I've never really played this game before, until the rollback days. Like I messed around a couple times at like locals. That was about it. I'm relearning shit in this game, but it's the same me. I get to apply a lot of the same things I'm learning, and a lot of the things that I'm learning in Plus R are also relevant in Xrd, and it's awesome, right? Even though I'm playing different games, even if I switch different characters, and you've seen me play different characters all the time, right? It's all the same me. I'm learning. It's the same hands, the same brain, it's the same heart, all playing the same games. I know that there are a lot of people out there who feel the same way that I did when I found out that Plus R was getting rolled back, right? It's like, man, why couldn't it have been the Guilty Gear that I like playing? And I get it, especially if you're playing like a Valentine or Batman or Raven or, one of the characters that doesn't show up in Plus R at all, right? You've invested so much in the game that you want to play. And when you get good momentum playing a game, especially something as hard as Xrd, it can feel so hard to want to shift your focus, because in the same way that I felt when I was really focused on jiu-jitsu, like you just kind of built up all that structure and all the comfort zone. You figured out what your goals are and you're getting closer to them, and it feels so good, right? It feels great. And I understand anyone who's like, yeah, I just want to keep playing this game, or playing Xrd. I get it, right? I still plan on continuing to run Xrd events because I still want to keep playing Xrd, right? And I hope that I can help other people play Xrd too. But I don't want people to stick to Xrd and stay away from Plus R out of fear. I don't want people to be worried about getting worse, right? I hear people say this, right? They're like, oh, I'm not going to play this game because it'll make me worse at this other game. It will not make you worse at this other game. Yes, there are times where your hands will get confused. Yes, there's a lot more that you need to learn. And depending on your situation, you may find that the progress that you made in Xrd felt so satisfying, and that when you move back to Plus R and try and basically relearn Guilty Gear, that you won't feel like you made that same progress. It'll feel like a reset. But you didn't. It's the same you. The stuff you learned in Xrd will never go away, right? There's gonna be some stuff that like temporarily leaves your brain, but the moment you get back into Xrd, you'll relearn it real quick. It's awesome. Take this from me as someone who has learned how to play multiple fighting games at a pretty deep level, right? So if you want to play Rev2 and keep on playing Rev2, do it, right? Be there for the people who also want to keep playing Rev2, but do it because you love the game. Don't do it out of fear, right? Fear about getting worse, or fear about like losing your progress, because you don't. You only get stronger by playing multiple games. The greatest fighting game players in the world all got strong by playing multiple games. Daigo, Justin Wong, Momochi, Kazunoko, like Sonic Fox, everyone gets so much stronger by playing multiple fighting games, right? The gains you make by playing multiple games are incredible, because one game can only stretch your brain in so many different ways. Even a game as complex as Guilty Gear, right? It's I am always impressed with the people who are new to fighting games that started on Xrd, right? And we have a lot of y'all in chat. I know this because for a lot of you, I was the person who kind of helped you get there. right? Xrd prepares you to learn every fighting game because Xrd has the DNA of every fighting game in it, right? If you are familiar with stuff in Rev2, you will never go into another fighting game and feel completely unequipped, because there's always going to be something about that fight, about that, you know, in Guilty Gear that's alive in another fighting game, right? But don't just stick to Rev2 because it's what you're comfortable and what you know, right? Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with continuing to play the game you love, right? For whatever reason. Maybe, you know, maybe because it's got the character you like. Maybe it's because you just really like the art a lot better. I get it. Plus R looks kind of ugly compared to Rev2, 100%. But you are the same person playing any game, right? And the more games you learn how to play, the easier it is to learn other games faster. You want to know how people can pick up a new fighting game and instantly feel like amazing at it? It's because they had the practice of learning so many different fighting games, right? Just like we used to do in the old days, right? When I used to go to my friend's house and play CVS2, and he'd show me another game that he just burned on the fucking Dreamcast, and I'm like, what's this? Vampire Savior? Okay, I guess we're playing Vampire Savior today. What's this, Garo Mark of the Wolves? I guess we're playing Garo Mark of the Wolves today. Whatever, it's not a big deal. We're just gonna mesh them around, press some buttons, try and learn a thing, maybe watch some videos, right? Learning how to play fighting games, it upgrades you. It has nothing to do with the character you're playing, the system you're playing it on, the controller you're playing, whatever. It's all you that's doing the work, and it carries over from one game to another. So why am I talking about this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to play whatever game I want, and I'm going to stream whatever game I want. But I wanted to make sure that the people who are out there who are thinking, should I play Plus R? I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun playing Rev2. If it's because you're worried about the things you've got going on in Rev2, don't worry about it, right? Keep on playing Rev2. No one's going to stop you. It's going to be awesome, right? And I hope that like we can continue to build out the local scene for Rev2 so that we can keep this game alive, because it is beautiful and it is amazing. I do not intend to let Plus R replace Rev2. I'm sure as hell that we're still going to be seeing Rev2 at Animivo, at Frosty Faustings, at Combo Breaker, and you bet your ass I'll be running Rev2 events. And we'll have to deal with this again when Strive comes out, right? Learning how to sustain multiple Guilty Gears in the same community is going to be tricky, but we're going to do it together. But I'm saying this, and I'm talking about this, because now is the best time to get into Plus R, right? One, because there are a lot of new players, and so you'll have an easier time finding people who are at around your level, which, again, for most of you, you probably haven't had that experience in Rev2 at all, or if you have, it's only come with a lot of work, right? Which is awesome. Now you have friends to play with. You can learn how to play Plus R with them, or you can log on, play some randos, and you'll actually have a pretty good chance of finding some people at around your level, right? But the second thing is, don't discount the value that rollback netcode brings to the online play experience. A lot of the frustration that people have in playing online fighting games is not just about getting bodied by like, you know, random jerks on the internet. It's also because the games themselves actually don't feel good to play, right? We've been making do with Xrd, and if y'all don't really know what it's like to play at a local, then y'all might not quite understand just how good Rev2 feels when you're playing it locally, right? The netcode at best is tolerable. It's okay. We can continue to have an okay fighting game experience. But in Plus R, the rollback is really good. And it isn't just about like response time. It isn't about, oh, I got hit by that. It actually just makes the connection like that you feel with the person you're playing against feel better, because it's not mediated by a bunch of awesome lag, right? And the cool thing about rollback netcode is not just the connection quality, it's that the connection quality lets you connect to other people around the world, which is pretty awesome. And it's part of what fighting games are about, right? The best stories I've heard from Plus R are the people who have friends across the country or across the world that they're able to play with and hang out with and talk with while playing a fighting game, while playing one of the most technically complex fighting games. It's fucking awesome. And if you think about this the same way that I think about martial arts, COVID means that for most of us, we're not going to have a chance to get good quality local play, right? Which means we're gonna be limited to net play for a long time, and we're gonna be limited to playing with people on net play for a long time. So if you're thinking about this in terms of how can I grow as a fighting game player, not just as a Guilty Gear player, but as a fighting game player, this is a really good opportunity to grow. Because you're going to get to play against more people, you're going to get a chance to learn a game from scratch with all the fundamentals and concepts that you build up learning Rev2. And you get to do it with a bigger player pool than you've ever been able to do it for Guilty Gear before. I mentioned this the other day, but if you haven't been to a major that runs Guilty Gear, you can always tell because the Guilty Gear players do not stop cracking out the casual setups. Whenever there is a casual setup playing Guilty Gear, you'll find people just mashing and laughing and having a good ass time. And it's especially magical at tournaments like Combo Breaker and Frosty Faustings because their venues open late, in some cases all night. And so it's great. You actually feel like you're in a world lobby, but everyone is just having fun. And the vibe is amazing. It's just this kind of like background ambient hum of people who are so happy because there's more Guilty Gear than they know what to do with there. And most Guilty Gear players do not have this experience, right? If you're in Japan, you got an arcade, that's great, lucky you. For most of us, it's not like that, right? You're just so happy to be around a group of people like playing gear. That's all it is. And it is one of the best feelings I've ever had at a major, right? At an event, at any fighting game event, was just to hang out there and soak it up and get games in. You'll play for like an hour and then you'll be like, yo, I need to take a break. Oh my God, you're gonna stretch. You'll go get a drink. And then you'll come back and be like, yo, I think I'm trying to play more Guilty Gear. And then you'll do it again, and you'll do it again, and you'll do it again. And the thing about Plus R GDPO is for the last couple weeks, it's felt like that. Every Discord that I've been has been popping with people just dropping links. Just press that one button to copy link and then you can paste into a Discord and someone you're tight with can just click on that and start playing with you, right? I saw Hano in one of the Discords I'm in. He had just finished murdering his way to third place in the bracket that CFG ran. And someone was like, hey, Hano, I haven't gotten a chance to play with you. This beta's about to close. You're trying to get some games in real quick? And Hano's like, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of tired. But I'll let you know in 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, that motherfucker was in there mashing buttons like nothing had happened. So think about it this way. Like I said, play the game you want to play. Play whatever it is. Don't force it. Don't force yourself to play something that you're not trying to play. But you're a Guilty Gear player and you're a fighting game player. And if you stick with this the way I think you will, and if you stick with, honestly, the way that you stuck with Guilty Gear so far leads me to believe that you'll probably be playing fighting games for a long time. Over the years, you're going to learn to play and love a lot of different fighting games. So don't hold yourself back, because you're not just a Guilty Gear player, you're a fighting game player. This is basically the best experience I've had outside of running events during COVID has been net playing Plus R during COVID. And the reason is because it's a good ass game with some good ass netcode. And we've been waiting a long time to have this. So if you're into it or you're on the fence or you're thinking, I don't know, give it a shot. It's $3 and I guarantee you this will make you better at Rev2. So that's the spiel. With that, I think I'm going to go ahead and open up the lobby and we can get